alligators and long-necked geese, some humpty-backed camels and some chimpanzees, some cats and rats and elephants, but sure as you're born, don't you forget my unicorn. Old Noel was there to answer the call. He finished up making the ark just as the rain started falling. He marched in the animals 2 by 2, and he called out as they went through, "Hey Lord, I got you green alligators and long-necked geese, some humpty-backed camels and some chimpanzees, some cats and rats and elephants, but Lord, I'm so forlorn, I just can't see no unicorn." Then Noah looked out through the driving rain. Them unicorns were hiding, playing silly games, kicking and splashing while the rain was pouring. Oh, them silly unicorns. There was green alligators and long-necked geese, some humpty-backed camels and some chimpanzees. Noah cried, "Close the door, 'cause the rain is pouring, and we just can't wait for no unicorn." The ark started moving, it drifted with the tide. Them unicorns looked up from the rocks and they cried, and the waters came down and sort of floated them away. And that's why you never seen a unicorn to this very day. You'll see green alligators and long-necked geese, some humpty-backed camels and some chimpanzees, some cats and rats and elephants, but sure as you're born, you're never gonna see no unicorn.
While in the merry month of May, now from me home I started, left the girls at Hume and nearly broken heart, saluted father dear, kissed me darling mother, drank a pint of beer, me grief and tears are smothered enough to reap the corn, leave for I was born, caught a stout black torn to banish ghosts and goblins, brand new pair of brogues to rat the love of the bogs, frighten all the dogs on the rocky road to Dublin, 1 to 3 for 5. Hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road and all the ways to Dublin, whack for Lally-ra. In Mullingar the blight arrested limb so weary, started by daylight this morning bright and nearly took a drop of the pure, keep me heart from sinking, that's the paddy's cure. When Aries up for drinking to see the lassies smile, laughing all the while at me curious style, to set your heart a bubbling, asked me was I hired, wages I required till I was almost tired of the rocky road to Dublin, 1 to 3 for 5. Hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road and all the ways to Dublin, whack for Lally-ra. In Dublin next arrived, I thought it such a pity to be so soon deprived the view of that fine city. Then I took a stroll, all among the quality bundle it was told. When in a neat locality some did cross me mind, when I looked behind a bundle could I find upon me stick a wobble inquiring for the road, said me Connacht brogue it wasn't much in vogue, on the rocky road to Dublin, 1 to 3 for 5. Hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road and all the ways to Dublin, whack for Lally-ra. From there I got away, my spirits never failing, landed on the quay just as the ship was sailing. Captain at me roared, said the storeroom Harry, when I jumped aboard a cabin brown for paddy. Down among the pigs, did some hearty rigs, a dance some hearty jigs, the water round me bubbling when up Holyhead. Wished myself was dead, I bet the bar instead, on the rocky road to Dublin, 1 to 3 for 5. Hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road and all the ways to Dublin, whack for Lally-ra. Hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road and all the ways to Dublin, whack for Lally-ra. Ah well, the boys of Liverpool, when we safely landed, called myself a fool. I could no longer stand it, blood began to boil. Temper I was losing, poor old Aaron's oil. Oh, they began everything hurrah, my soul says I'm a shillelagh, I'll fly. Galway boys were buying, saw I was a hobbling with a loud hooray. Join in the affray, quickly clear the way for the rocky road to Dublin, 1 to 3 for 5. Hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road and all the ways to Dublin, whack for Lally-ra. Hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road and all the ways to Dublin, whack for Lally-ra.
When I wake up, well I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah I know I'm gonna be the man who goes. If I get...
Well, I see it's 7 o'clock and I'm sorry to interrupt the great music. Good evening and thank you for joining Expedia Cruises as we explore the world with peace of mind. My name is Steve McInnes. Well, we're almost at the end of our journey now. Our first stop was Spain and Portugal. Then we skipped over to the northern Canada and back again to the fjords of Norway. Next, we put on our expedition shoes and headed off to Iceland and Greenland. Today, we're exploring Scotland and Ireland. We're all eager to get started, but first I'd like to give you a quick overview of our itinerary. Nancy McInnes will be sharing the Azamara presentation with us, and then we'll answer any questions you may have. If you want to ask a question, please use the chat feature. The chat feature can be found at the bottom of your screen or by pressing the Alt and H keys simultaneously. If you have to leave us after the presentation, we understand, and we'd like to thank you for attending. But if you're able to stay with us for a little while longer, we have a video featuring 3 of our consultants who've all traveled recently. We thought you might appreciate hearing what travel was like for them. They'll also be available for any questions after their video. If you experience any technical difficulties, often the easiest and fastest thing to do is simply to exit the webinar and log back in again. Don't worry, if you missed anything, we're recording the webinar and we'd be happy to forward it to you. And of course, for any questions that are more specific in nature, your consultant's always available to help you. All right, I think that's everything. Let's introduce you to Nancy. Nancy is one of our franchise partners at the Credit View office and my wife, and she's here to talk to you about Azamara. Take it away, Nancy.
Thanks, Steve. I'm just getting myself set up here. And we'll be good to go. All righty, let's hope that all our technical difficulties are behind us for tonight. So why do we travel? It's the question that's on everyone's mind, and I figure it's why you're here with us tonight. I think that for most of us, it's about those human connections with people from all over the world, connections that intrigue us and enrich our lives, and really they give us experiences that broaden our perspective. And that's exactly why Azamara exists. It's actually their trademark. They're known for destination immersion. It's Azamara's sole purpose that when you're traveling with them as a guest, they're going to connect you to others through culture, history, stories, and all the good parts of people that make us all so unique. It also lets us connect with ourselves because it gives us a whole new perspective. For 11 years now, Azamara has been dedicated to the pursuit of the world, and they do it in a really unique way. Azamara cruise vacation isn't really a cruise vacation. Instead, Azamara is a mode of transportation all over the globe so that you can explore a country or a region of the world in depth. Azamara has itinerary voyages that they call country intensive, and they're specific to that country, except that they have to throw in one international port because that's the law. But really on their destination intensive cruises, you are there to explore that country. So when you sit down with your Expedia Cruises consultant and they say to you, so what's on the bucket list? And you say, Denmark, we'd really like to go to Denmark or South Africa or Scotland and Ireland. Then your consultant is probably going to suggest that in order to really experience that country from its oldest points of view, its oldest contact points, which of course are along the coastlines, that consultant is going to say, maybe you should take a trip with Azamara. Azamara has 3 boutique floating hotels, and they will park them for hours, even days in each of the seaports. So you get more time ashore, more time to explore, and more time to make those cultural connections with the people of the country. Destination immersion is what Azamara has always been about. It's their trademark. And what I love about Azamara is that those overnights really make it feel like you're staying in a hotel in the destination, and your hotel just happens to be parked in the seaport. Azamara likes to say that they're the destination immersion experts. So when you say something like that, you have to live up to that and you have to excel at it year after year. If you look at this chart, it shows a comparison between Azamara and some of their competitors. You need to know that Azamara is considered deluxe, while some of those other competitors are luxury. And when you're luxury, that means that you got a luxury price tag as well. But you can see from the chart that even though Azamara isn't going to be the most expensive, they're the leader in port days, late nights, overnight stays. They are focused on traveling the world. It's a lot more than just a cruise vacation. So these are their 3 floating boutique hotels. This image was taken during the pandemic while the ships were ported in Glasgow. So it was really a once in a lifetime opportunity to get a photograph with all 3 ships in one location. Each ship carries 702 guests at full capacity, and there are 407 crew members to look after those 700 guests. It's pretty exciting to think that in 2022, there's going to be a 4th ship added to the fleet, the Azamara Onward, and it'll join the sister ships, the Quest, the Journey, and the Pursuit. I don't know if any of you are Outlander fans, but if you know anything about the Netflix series, it's all about the clans, the Mackenzies, the Frasers, the McDonalds. So we found this really cool old map from the early 1700s that shows where the clans lived, because of course, clans are a big part of the culture. A few more facts for you. The official language is Celtic language. It's Scottish Gaelic, and it is on the endangered list. When you travel through Scotland, especially in the Highlands, there'll be Scottish Gaelic on the signs. In fact, if you look at this at the picture in the middle up at the top, there it is. But don't panic if you're the guy doing the driving, because if you look at the white, that's the English. Scotland has a really rich culture for sports. One of their best known is golf, of course, and we'll talk about that one a little bit later on. But the most popular sport in Scotland is football, or on this side of the world, it's called soccer. Scotland has the world's first international association, and the first match was held in 1872 between Scotland and England. I'm sure it was a pretty rowdy affair, but it still ended in a 0-0 score. Scotland has some well-known Formula One drivers, Jackie Stewart, for example. And they also play a game called shinty it's the picture down the bottom left. It's a lot like field hockey. If you notice the sticks on the bottom left image, you can see that they're a little bit different than field hockey sticks though. And of course, the original sport has a lot more body contact. It's a way more aggressive game. We travel the world to connect to the culture of the country and the people that we visit. This is a list of the top 13 cultural connections that Scotland considers to be key. So as you can see, there's a lot there. More than just the bagpipes and festivals. Bagpipes are not unique to Scotland, but they are considered Scotland's national instrument. And of course, they're one of the most iconic symbols of Scottish culture. And one of the most well-known festivals is the Edinburgh Military Tattoo, which is held every August. When it comes to food in Scotland, the deep fried Mars bar, which is right front and center there in that picture, some people say as a joke that it typifies the modern Scottish diet. But Scottish cuisine has other traditional, like real traditional dishes like fish and chips or haggis or Scotch broth and shortbread. Let's not forget the shortbread. I don't know about you, but I'm eternally grateful to Scotland for shortbread. And of course, a good single malt Scotch whiskey. There's a unique fact that many people don't know, but there's a huge French influence, or at least there's supposed to be a huge French influence on Scottish cookery that dates back to the Middle Ages. During her reign, Mary Queen of Scots brought an entourage of French staff back to Scotland with her, and they are considered responsible for revolutionizing Scotch cooking. It's a little bit hard to believe because when you think French cooking, somehow you don't think Scotland, but when in Scotland, you gotta try the haggis. I know that the thought of what is used to make it is extremely off-putting, but apparently when it's made properly, it's very tasty and it's very wholesome. Every chef has their own recipe and then they just play with it a little bit to get the flavor and the texture that they like. Can be anywhere from spicy to more of an herbal flavor. And if you're not feeling brave enough to make your own, you can even order it online. Scotch. With a history stretching back as far as the 11th century, Scottish whiskey is an important part of Scotland's identity. And it's believed that whiskey making began as winemaking methods spread from monasteries in Europe. But the monks in Scotland had no access to grapes, so they used grain mash. And apparently the first recorded instance was way back in 1494. Today, Scotland has 109 distilleries, and they have made Scotch whiskey famous around the world, especially at my house. There's an interesting legend about the creation of Drambuie. Apparently, after the Battle of Culloden in 1746, Prince Charles Edward Stuart fled to the Isle of Skye, where Captain John Mackinnon of the Clan Mackinnon gave him sanctuary. According to the family legend, after he stayed with the captain, the prince rewarded him and gave him a recipe for a prize drink. The legend continues that Clan Mackinnon gave the recipe to John Ross in the late 1800s. John was a local businessman and he and his son ran the hotel in Bradford on Skye, and they started to play with the experiment at the hotel, play with the recipe at the hotel. The drink didn't have a particular name at the time, but of course, we know it today as Drambuie. There are historians who say that that is just a load of poppycock and the story was invented to boost sales, but I still think it's kind of a cute story. All right, from Drambuie to beer. Apparently, Scotland has been brewing beer for 5,000 years. The first thing you need to know is that there are 4 levels of potency: light, heavy, export, and wee heavy. If you look at the symbol in the photograph on the right, you can see the /. And apparently that is the symbol for shillings, like just shillings, 0 pence, right? Just shillings. So if you were going to go into a pub and order a beer, you wouldn't say, can I have a pint of whatever? You'd say, can I have a pint of 90 shillings or a pint of 80 shillings, depending on whether you want the wee heavy or just the export. All right, let's look at a typical Azamara voyage through Scotland. Typically, they're only offered 2 or 3 times a year because each ship literally circumnavigates the globe every year. So each voyage is linked to the one that came before it and also to the one that's going to follow it. So Azamara is really different, and because they proceed this way. And even if you can't go on this one, on August 8th on the Quest, the itinerary may be offered later in the year, but just on a different ship. So this particular voyage is sailing August 8th, 2022, which is a pretty good date. It's a pretty good itinerary to be on, because that means that you're going to be in Edinburgh near the start of the military tattoo, and you'll get an opportunity to experience that world famous festival. This slide lets you see where you'll be traveling. It gives you a day-by-day itinerary of the sailing. And you can see there's several days where you get a full day in port along with a couple of overnight stays. Azamara is known for destination immersion, and there it is right on the itinerary. Your journey begins in Amsterdam. We suggest you fly in a few days before you're sailing because you want to take advantage of everything that Amsterdam has to offer. It'd be a shame you spend all that time flying there, and so you'd really like to have a few extra days just to sample the local cuisine, take in the sights, maybe take a canal cruise or visit Anne Frank House or the Van Gogh Museum, or maybe even take a day tour just to see the windmills. Day 2, you're at sea and you'll have the opportunity to relax and unwind, and you'll get to explore your floating hotel. This is a great opportunity for you to get to know Azamara, but just as importantly, it lets the Azamara team get to know you as well. Here we are, we're in Edinburgh. You get 36 hours here to explore and enjoy this incredible seaport. It's one of the overnight experiences on the voyage. Azamara has become so well known for its long stays and overnight experiences. And now you're thinking, okay, well, I'm here. There's so much to do. Where do I begin? Well, let me just make a suggestion or two. Here we are, Edinburgh Castle. Its stone towers and walls have dominated the Edinburgh skyline since the 13th century. Although when you're talking the 1200s, I don't know if it's really appropriate to talk about a skyline. It's perched atop Castle Rock, and there's fabulous views of the city. And it also gives you it also takes you on a trip through Scotland's tumultuous history. The drawbridge over the old moat takes you into the Esplanade, and that's where the military tattoo is held in August. Then as you enter the castle, there's bronze statues of William Wallace and Robert the Bruce. Below the castle is the Royal Mile. It goes all the way down the steep escarpment to elegant Palace of Holyrood House, which is, of course, another one of Edinburgh's most famous landmarks. The Royal Mile is lined with townhouses and historic landmarks and shops and tea rooms and museums and cafes. There's no end of stuff to see. Some of the other things you might like to do in Edinburgh may include the Royal Yacht Britannia and Stirling Castle. Britannia was the floating royal residence for over 40 years. It traveled more than 1 million miles around the globe. So you'll get a chance, you get a little bit of a glimpse of the life of the royal family and their guests and the crew. You can visit the bridge, the state apartments, the royal bedrooms, the crew quarters, even the engine room. And you'll also get a chance to see the Rolls-Royce Phantom 5, because of course that traveled on the yacht, because heaven forbid the royal family shouldn't have a car whenever they got wherever they were going. And of course you can have tea and cakes in the tea room. There's castles all over Scotland, but Stirling Castle, which is the one in the picture on the left, that was the childhood home of Mary Queen of Scots. It's also one of the best preserved Renaissance buildings in the UK, and it's been restored to how it looked in the 1500s, even the tapestries. But Stirling Castle is also known for the Battle of Bannockburn, when Robert the Bruce defeated the English invaders in 1314, and the Battle of Stirling Bridge, when William Wallace secured a victory for Scottish independence. I love this one. Many tourists miss Mary King's Close. It's almost not spoken of, but hidden beneath Edinburgh City Chambers, right underneath the famous Royal Mile, there's a network of underground alleys and winding streets and historic spaces. You can step back in time to 1645, and a costumed guide will take you on a walk through this web of narrow side streets called closes that led off the Royal Mile. They got locked up at each end at night to keep the undesirables out. So the rich people lived in the top floors where the buildings got the most light and, of course, the least smell of sewage. And the poorest people lived in the dark, squalid ground floors where they got pinned in with the cattle, and they had those open sewers right outside their front door. If you prefer something a little more elegant, there are stately homes that dot the countryside of Scotland, and you might be interested in Broomhall House just outside of Edinburgh. This is one of Azamara's curated excursions, and it's exclusive to Azamara guests. Broomhall House is on a secluded 2,500-acre private estate, but it will be opened just for you. You'll meet a relative of King Robert the Bruce, and as you wind your way down this driveway, you get your first glimpse of a house that is more than 300 years old and has housed 13 generations of the Bruce family. A descendant of King Robert the Bruce will welcome you, and you'll go for a little bit of a stroll. You can admire the 18th century French mirrors. You'll learn all about the Bruce legacy. And then you sit down to this elegant tea service and listen to all the stories from your guide. It's a really spectacular excursion. But if your idea of fun is, involves four-legged guests, then maybe you want to venture into the rolling hills and take a scenic drive out to the Swanson family farm, where you go off on this guided trek into the hills. Soon enough, you'll come across Scotland's hairy coos, the local and quite appropriate name for the Highland cow. They have this mop top of hair that really makes them quite adorable, as long as you don't mind the horns, but apparently they are gentle. You get a close-up look at the hairy coos, and you learn about the organic methods used to care for the herd. You get some great photographs, and you go back to the farm where you see the local sheep and the free-range hens. And then you sit down to a traditional afternoon cream tea with scones and sandwiches, and of course, tea. You get 14 hours in Aberdeen, so it's lots of time. There's shops and pubs and medieval streets. And if you want, you can even take a trip to a local farm to meet the Aberdeenshire cattle. It's also a great opportunity if you want to visit a Scottish capital, because Azamara has excursions that offer you 3 choices. So we're going to start with the one on the big picture on the right. That is Crathis Castle. It's a 16th century maze of turrets and towers and gargoyles and oak panels and painted ceilings. When you get to the castle, the gardener will take you on a private tour through the enclosed garden. There's 8 sections of greenery. There's a sculpted topiary, there's herbs, there's modern exotic blooms. There are huge yew hedges that were planted back in 1702. And you'll hear all about the Burnett family, who lived in the castle for more than 350 years. And their roots in the area date back to 1323. And of course, there's family portraits and antique furniture, and then you head back to port. Or on the bottom left, there's Drum Castle. It has a 700-year history. So you can scroll around the castle grounds, you can tour the castle. You also get behind the scenes access to the archive room. So you get to see the original charter from Robert the Bruce, stamped by the king's own hand. It hardly ever sees the light of day, so it is a really special experience. And then you can go through the Royal Forest and Tower of Drum that Robert the Bruce gave to the Irvine family in 1323. And of course, there's a beautiful garden of historic roses that shows how roses have been cared for since the 17th century. The last picture on the top left is Dunnottar Castle. So obviously it's got fabulous views of the Aberdeenshire coast. You'll learn how it's the residence where the honors of Scotland, the Scottish crown jewels, were hidden from Oliver Cromwell's invading army in the 17th century. And once you're up at this, this is really a clifftop fortress. It was the home of the Earls Marshal, one of the most dominant families in the land. You can follow the path and see all these coves and bays and continue on to Stonehaven, which is really a lovely harbor town that the locals call Stony. You can check out the town on your own, walk along the beach, observe the sailboats, take in the views, and then it's back to the port. Invergordon is day 6 of your journey. You're there for 13 hours. Being in a port and exploring and connecting with the people and their culture by night is something that cruise lines have never really focused on, but Azamara has always done that. They know that a city by day is not the same as a city by night, so they want to make sure that you have lots of opportunity to explore. Loch Ness is the largest body of water in Scotland's Great Glen. It's a waterway that connects the east and west coasts of Scotland. So So Loch Ness and 3 other lochs are joined together by the Caledonian Canal. You can cruise it on a short excursion, or you can take a 6-hour trip that will take you right from one end across to the other. You go through the canal locks that adjust to the different water levels. The canal and each of the lochs are surrounded by some of the most beautiful Highland scenery. But of course, nothing is better than Loch Ness itself. And you can also go into the town of Loch Ness. There's exhibits and pubs and places to go and explore. And of course, you gotta look for Nessie herself. I'm hoping that some of you have a real love of photography, whether you consider yourself an amateur or a professional. It's so incredible in the Scottish Highlands that Azamara put together a short excursion where you go off on this adventure with a local expert and professional photographer whose name is Tim Winterburn. You go off on this 4-wheel adventure, you go through the Highlands, and he helps you take the most stunning photographs. Then you take them home and share them with your friends and family, and you get all the credit. The next day, you arrive in the Shetland Islands, and they are absolutely beautiful. They're just breathtaking. There's about 100 islands that make up the Shetland Islands in total, and you've got 9 hours there. So you've got lots of time to not only explore Lerwick, but maybe you want to take a ferry across to Musa. Musa is a fabulous discovery. It's got really rugged and uninhabited landscape. You can go north and you see all the migratory birds like the Arctic tern, or you can climb the tower on the Isle of Musa. And because there's regular ferry service, you can also go check out other Shetland Islands. On day 8, you arrive at the Orkney Islands in Kirkwall, and you've got 12 hours there. It's a beautiful part of northern Scotland, and Magnus Cathedral really dominates Kirkwall. I think one of the most fascinating things about this area is the Viking legends. An expert historian will take you along the famed Viking capital trail. You'll see St. Magnus Cathedral right in the heart of Kirkwall. It was built in 1137 by Earl Rognvald. And amazingly, its doors are still open today. The cathedral will welcome anyone who wants to come inside. Then you can go to the nearby Earl's Palace, which is French Renaissance. And then across the way is the Bishop's Palace, which dates back to the mid-12th century. You have another 12-hour day in port at the Isle of Lewis because you don't sail away until 8 p.m. So it's a full day to explore the largest town in the Outer Hebrides or explore the grounds of historic Lewis Castle. Stornoway is a lovely port, and there is lots to see and do and take in, but you really have to make sure that you save some time just for the local food. Nikki from Azamara was born in Scotland, and she's been to this port many, many times. So she put together a little list just in case you're going to be there and you're looking for some recommendations. There's also great souvenir shopping available. Here's a little list for you as well. There's everything from antiques to maritime items to local artworks, because, shopping's a great way to enjoy a port. Oban is an absolutely beautiful little seaport, and it's not a bad Scotch either. So you have another great opportunity to explore and experience because you've got 10 hours in port. Oban makes a great base for sightseeing excursions into the Highland Mountains and lochs. You can enjoy the beach at Gonavan Sands, where you can go on this panoramic journey through the countryside, or you can glide through the air on the Ben Nevis gondola. Your journey takes you to the heart of the Nevis Range and its highest mountain, Unachmore. There you get on this 6-person gondola and up you go up the side of the mountain, up the north face. There's fabulous views. And in 15 minutes or so, you reach the summit station of Unachmore, which is some 2,100 feet above sea level. So jump out of the gondola, breathe in the fresh mountain air, walk around, have a great look. It's pretty breathtaking. You've almost reached the end of your exploration of Scotland, but you've still got an overnight in Glasgow. You've got 33 hours in port. So take in everything that the cosmopolitan city has to offer. Just don't forget to make time to stop off at a local pub. There's lots to see and do in Glasgow, and you've got the overnight again. So it's been transformed from an industrial city to the cultural center of Scotland with museums and art galleries and concert venues and festivals. The Gaelic name means lovely green place, which is really appropriate because Glasgow has 70 parks and open spaces. If you're a music lover, there's lots to do in Glasgow. It's known as Scotland's music capital. There's the Theatre Royal, the Scottish Opera, the Concert Hall. There's also St. Mungo's Cathedral, which is right next door to the Museum of Religious Life and Art. And beside that is the Victorian Gothic Garden Cemetery. It covers 37 acres and is described as the City of the Dead. Or you might be interested in art galleries. There's the Glasgow School of Art or the Kelvin Grove Art Gallery. Or maybe you would prefer the Riverside Museum in Tall Ship. They have attractions there that focus on everything to do with the history of transportation by land or water. So I thought it would be nice to finish up your time in Scotland on a poetic note. And no visit to Scotland is complete without visiting a site associated with Robbie Burns. You started in Amsterdam and you end in Ireland. When you do a country-intensive voyage, you have to visit at least one international port. So on this voyage, it's Dublin. That gives you two choices. Maybe you want to stay in Dublin and explore the city, or maybe you want to stay on board and do the very next voyage as Azamara heads into a 10-night Ireland immersive voyage. Whether you're staying on board or disembarking, make sure that you take some time to explore Dublin. Stop by a local pub for a pint of Guinness or spend some time at the EPIC, the Irish Emigration Museum. If you have an Irish background, it's a great place to trace your heritage. Azamara's next voyage takes you from Dublin around the Emerald Isle, and it ends in Southampton in the United Kingdom. It's another intensive voyage, of course, focused on Ireland. You've got another overnight experience. Days 3 and 4 are in Belfast, so you can visit the Giant's Causeway, the shipyard where the Titanic was built, or maybe Bushmills Distillery is calling your name. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, there are lots of nearby destinations where the show was filmed. There's the Dark Hedges, Castle Ward, and Ballantoy Harbor, which is home to the Iron Islands. On day 5, you're in Londonderry, which is Northern Ireland's second largest city. You got 12 hours in port, so you have lots of time to walk along the River Foyle, or you can tour the city's ancient walls and the historic buildings, or maybe you just want to take a tour out of the city and enjoy the countryside. Donegal boasts rugged mountains and sea cliffs and craggy inlets and sandy beaches and castles. It's got it all. So just make sure that you bring your camera. You can take in the best of Donegal on a journey that's going to take you through the countryside. You'll stop at beautiful Silverstrand Beach. So stop for pictures, enjoy the ocean breeze and the ocean and the mountains, and then head off to meet your hosts, FJ and Megan Cunningham. They are carrying on the Irish tradition of sheep herding at their country home, and you will be treated to a live demonstration of the skill of their herd of sheepdogs. And I'm betting there's probably a couple antics thrown in too. Galway dates back to 1124. It has survived everything from Norman invaders and Cromwellian conquest to the potato famines. And in 2020, it was named the European City of Culture because it represents the best of Irish culture, due in no small part, I'm sure, to its welcoming pubs and traditional Irish music. So a drive through Burren, a UNESCO Global Geopark, gives you a chance to experience dramatic landscapes that you're not going to see anywhere else in Ireland, or maybe even in the world. As you travel to the famous cliffs of Moher, you'll see limestone plateaus with these dramatic vertical fissures. It's just beautiful. Then head underground to visit the Cliffs of Moher visitor experience, where you will learn about life on the cliff face above and below sea level. And of course, take time to visit the souvenir shop. Given that it was the first place in Europe to welcome transatlantic flights of seaplanes, it's not surprising that Foynes is also home to the Foynes Flying Boat Museum. Or, if you prefer, it's also the birthplace of Irish coffee. Day 9 brings us to Cobb, which was the final port of call on the Titanic's ill-fated voyage. It's also home to the famous Blarney Stone. On our last day at sea, you get lots of time to relax and unwind after exploring Ireland. So you can spend your time being pampered in the spa, or maybe you want to lounge by the pool, enjoy the most amazing cuisine at sea, and then take in some nightly entertainment. The itinerary ends in Southampton, and this is where we have to say goodbye, unless you're having such a good time, of course, that you plan to stay on board for just one more voyage. There's lots to see and do in Southampton. London's not far away, so if you decide to spend some time in the area, you're not going to be bored. You may want to explore Bath with its natural hot springs, or maybe Stonehenge is luring you there. Or maybe you want to go all the way to Land's End and the pirate haunts of Cornwall. I just want to quickly go through some images of life on board Azamara's floating boutique hotels to give you a feeling for what it's like to be on their ships. Azamara offers tremendous value because when guests come on board, there are things that you can upgrade if you choose, but everything else is included. There's gratuities, spirits, beer, wine, bottled water, soft drinks, specialty teas and coffees, all included. There's also self-serve laundry if you need. And if you're in one of their suites, you have English butler service, complimentary internet, priority embarkation and disembarkation, along with all the other suite amenities. In most cases, Azamara docks right in the heart of the seaport, but when they can't, then they also offer a complimentary shuttle service for their guests. And of course, there's the complimentary Azamazing evenings. These are events where guests are normally invited into the destination to spend the evening with local entertainers at a historic, iconic venue. But in 2022, because of COVID, then the Azamazing evenings will be held on the ship, but it's still going to be a really unique experience. These next couple of slides highlight some of the venues on board Azamara's ships. The two dining venues in the middle, the Prime C and Aquilina, those are the specialty restaurants. There's a small cover charge, $30 US per person, unless you choose to stay in a suite, and then it's complimentary. The venues look really formal, but you're on board, you're traveling as friends to explore the world, so you don't need any of your formal attire. You can just leave it all at home. It's not required on board the ship. This is a look at a few more of the venues on the ships. As you can see, the ships were originally built by Renaissance cruise lines, by European craftsmen. So Azamara does everything possible to preserve the beautiful exotic woods, the architectural design, but they've also put their own contemporary spin on it. The ships offer a variety of accommodations. There's something to suit everyone's taste. Hopefully these pictures will give you a feeling for the comfort that Azamara offers in their staterooms. Azamara also has this wonderful evening under the stars on every voyage. It happens on one of the nights when you don't leave the port city until at least 11 o'clock at night. In this picture, it's Monte Carlo that's in the background. So the city becomes the backdrop and you have this wonderful evening under the stars. There's a huge barbecue and entertainment, and sometimes they bring on a local entertainment group. This is just a few more pictures of the evenings under the stars. As you can see, everybody is wearing white. This is an Azamara white night, which they tend to do on the evening under the stars night. Guests say that they really enjoy it. So the evening under the stars and the Azamazing evenings are often the highlights of the trip for guests. All right, I promised you golf. Perry Golf has been around since 1984. It's one of the most innovative providers of international golf travel. They've partnered with Azamara since 2011, so they deliver the largest variety of voyages that combine marquee golf with the world's most amazing destinations. If you're a golfer, you might want to take note of that. The crew is the heart and soul of Azamara's cruise line. Year after year, Azamara has the highest number of repeat guests, or one of the highest numbers of repeat guests who sail with them continuously, and some of them even sail several times through the year. Guests say that the reason that they sail with Azamara, well, there's the unique itineraries, the overnight stays, and the destination immersion, but it's also because of the crew on board. They are family. It is not uncommon for guests to ask if Captain Carl will be the captain on their sailing, or they'll ask if Eric de Grey, the famous Canadian cruise director, is going to be on board, because the crew really is the heart and soul of Azamara. And with that, I'd like to thank you for spending some time with us as we explored Ireland and Scotland. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Nancy. That was really fantastic. It's an amazing cruise line for sure. So it was a fantastic presentation, especially to have that opportunity to explore the British Isles in such a wonderful, intimate way. So Azamara definitely does the British Isles in style. And one of my highlights when I was on Azamara was the amazing evening where we were taken to a beautiful manor, met the Lord in residence, experienced gin and whiskey tasting, and finished the evening off with a mini military tattoo with fireworks. And I can certainly attest that the wilds of the Northern Islands is something to behold. So just to reiterate or to talk about our World Explorer offer with Azamara, it is in addition to any of the current promotions, which are already impressive, that Azamara has on right now. And until October 31st, you can receive up to $500 US onboard credit when booking an Ocean View or higher. Now, I took a quick look at the chat box, and there don't seem to be any questions, but if anyone has any questions, if you'd like to pop it in there quickly, then we'd be more than happy to take a look at it, answer if we can. And if there aren't any questions, but you think of them after, please reach out to your Expedia Cruises consultant so that they can certainly help you with any answers that you are looking for. So before we officially close, for those of you wondering what it's like traveling in the current situation, we do invite you to stay on as we have three of our consultants, Glenn Curtis, Cheryl Walker, and Sue Hawks, share their recent travel experiences based on the most current restrictive guidelines. And who better to explain their experiences than those who help you plan your travel? After, Glenn will be available to answer any questions live that you have posted on the question boards concerning this part of the presentation. However, please keep in mind that we will not be answering any questions on vaccinations, as it will differ for each supplier, and we would literally be here all night. Except to say that, I was going to say, the situation does change on a regular basis. So when you're ready to start planning, your consultant will be in the best position to answer any of those questions at that time. We have had recent news that the CDC in the States has accepted mixed vaccines. So that's great news. And your consultant will be able to confirm with you what is going on across all the other countries and the fact that you can actually get into the States. So for those of you leaving us now, on behalf of the three Expedia Cruises Mississauga locations, we'd really like to thank all of you for attending this session. Your consultant will be in touch with you to discuss our World Explorer offers and any future travel you have in mind. And don't forget, our next session, which will be our last one, will be on Tuesday, October 26th at 7 p.m., where Celebrity will be introducing you to the Galapagos Islands. Thank you and have a great evening. Now, Rob, how about we take a look at rolling that video?
Hi there, my name's Sue, and I am here to tell you a little bit about my recent travel experiences and just overall general travel post-pandemic. I had the privilege of going not only to an all-inclusive in August in Jamaica, but also to a Disney cruise and Disney World in September. And those experiences, although different, were very similar in the travel experience. I think the key word I would say is pack your patience. You want to make sure that you know all of the protocols that are required for your destination, and you have all of the proper testing done pre-departure, which my first trip was a little overwhelming just because it was unknown. And then my second trip, it was a breeze. So I think that just conquering the fear of the unknown is huge. And that's where, as a travel agent, I'm there to help my clients. And I know your travel agent is there to help you to know what you need to do and to talk through any of the fears that you have in getting back out and traveling. In the airport experience, you are going to definitely need patience. When I went to Jamaica, the international terminal, it was really quite easy to go through security, and it took me half an hour. When I went through the US, to get through US customs and security took over 3 hours. So when they say, you know, to give yourself 3 hours, I would say right now you probably want to give yourself another half hour to an hour. I'm of the mind that it's always better to be sitting at the gate calm than to be anxious outside of the gate, you know, freaking out, wondering where or how, you know, you're going to get through, is the plane going to leave, and all of that kind of stuff. And running to the gate is never fun. So that would be my airport experience. Getting to the destination once you're there, yes, you have maybe a few more hoops to jump, but not hugely different. I found in Jamaica, it was no different. And then once I was in the States, yeah, it really felt the same. The only difference I had in that you had to do like a pre-sale, you know, green light PCR test. You had to do your online check-in, which you normally had to do, but you had just a little couple of extra steps in that. So you didn't just get to the port and get on board the ship. You had to take a PCR test. You had to wait, you know, about an hour for the test results before you could go into the terminal and start your cruise. Some cruise lines require that you still wear masks indoors. Mine did. And so I think, you know, one of the biggest things was remembering my mask when I'd walk out of my cabin, because, you know, you're sort of feeling like old time cruising, but then it's like, oh, I forgot my mask. So that was probably my biggest irritation on the whole thing. But that aside, cruising felt great to be back. I felt completely safe. All the adults were vaccinated. There were some kids, because of course it was a Disney cruise, so there were some kids there. But you know, you just keep to your group. You just, you know, wash your hands when you're supposed to. You know, we always carried hand sanitizer around with us, so that if we ever felt like we just needed a little wash, we would do it. And it really felt kind of normal. Same with the resort. You know, indoors we would wear our masks if it was an enclosed area like the gift shop or walking into a restaurant, but then otherwise we were just pretty much unmasked. If we were in a shuttle bus, we would wear our masks. So it wasn't that hard. It's no different than if you want to go out to dinner or a movie or church or whatever here, right? Getting the PCR tests. At the Sandals Resort, it was super easy because they do it for you. And in Disney, it was a little trickier because I had to do the research to figure out where to go for that. And there was also the out-of-pocket cost. But I shopped around and went with what I felt most comfortable with, both price and return time of my test results. And so that was the only like major step of coming home, because I had to have that PCR test to get back into Canada. Plus I had to do my ArriveCan app. So I make sure that I have my vaccine records in a hard copy as well as a digital copy, and I've got them easy to access. And then, yeah, just fill out the ArriveCan app and then, you know, head to the flight on the day of departure. Coming back into Toronto can be a little iffy in the sense that depending on when your plane arrives, how many other planes have come in, you might have a wait. So again, pack your patience, know in advance that you could be up to 3 hours before you walk out the door with your luggage. And if you know that in advance, then I think that it helps take some of that anxiety and you know, angst away. But other times, like, you know, one time I was 3 hours, the other time I was an hour. So it really just depends. But it feels so good to be back traveling again. And your travel agent is there to walk you through the whole process, to help calm your fears, to help you walk through the protocols for wherever your destination is. And all I can say is it just feels so good to be back to travel. So that's my story. Hope it helped.
Hi, my name is